variations of the Templar imagery, skull and crossbones, Masonic symbols, compass and square. Additional members of the Stuart royal house became one of Freemasonry's biggest supporters during their reign in Scotland and England. Many rituals used in modern Freemasonry have their origins in ancient texts discovered by the Templars in the ruins of Solomon's Temple, including Pythagorean mystery school math and the metaphysical documents that we have now, by divine revelations, have been putting out. Much of this relates to suppressed knowledge concerning sacred geometry, impacting various aspects of science, from water structuring and clustered water to the numerical frequencies of the color spectrum that are associated with creationistic theories and genetic expression. By the 17th and 18th centuries, the skull and crossbones became a symbol with a powerful reputation that began to be identified with other organizations. The Templars had long since gone underground. They evolved into organizations such as the KKK, also 666, Ku Klux Klan, whose imagery you see here. Here's an interesting disguise for the ancient symbol skull and bones. Historians agree the American Civil War was largely financed and largely instigated by Europe's banking elite. America's bloodiest war, sponsored by the British royalty and the banksters of Europe. Banks controlled by Rothschild family financed both sides of the Civil War. One of Rothschild's agents was George Bickley, founder of the Freemasonry-linked Knights of the Golden Circle. Bickley extolled the advantages of succession from the Union by the Confederate States, and the politics and the political wheel began for the Civil War. On the other side, the Rothschild, J.P. Morgan, August Belmont banks financed the Union. In addition, Rothschild's London bank supported the North, while its Paris branch bank funded the South. Lincoln got wind of it. I talk about that. I cut it from this presentation because I don't have enough time, but Lincoln was assassinated because he basically wanted to print greenbacks. He understood the scam. Curiously reflecting on the Templars and pirates' domination at sea, the Southern Cross, the Confederate State Cross, is adopted by the Confederate States, was their Navy's emblem, with certain parallels to the crossbones. With crossbones symbolized behind, the central red cross in Britain's Union Jack reflects the original red cross adopted by the Knights Templar. Now watch this. You take the British flag, you cut it into quarters, rotate the quarters 90 degrees, and you have the Nazi swastika. The disappearance, the mysterious disappearance of the great Templar banking dynasty fuels speculation that the Skull and Bones fraternity linked Rothschild family remains greatly empowered today, having financed Rockefeller banks that financed Hitler's rise to power, and industrialists supported both America and the Third Reich during World War II. Let me just tell you that a year and a half ago, you might recall in various news networks, there was an independent film producer who snuck his way into Yale's Skull and Bones fraternity and filmed a pledging session. Sacred ceremonies for pledging that fraternity. And he filmed them conducting mock murders and kissing skulls. That is part and parcel, I can tell you as a Harvard-trained behavioral scientist, that is part and parcel for desensitization and training for genocide, for conducting genocide by some of the world's most powerful leaders, which have many of them both pledged and gone through Skull and Bones fraternity. The Rockefeller global empire, I don't need to spend a lot of time with. If you've studied, been involved in these circles long enough, you know the various industries that the Rockefellers have substantial control, if not virtually entire controlling power over. And that, again, just recall that the banksters of Europe gave Rockefellers their start. The Human Genome Project heist begins in Chapter 10 of the book, DNA Pirates of the Sacred Spiral. The chapter begins with this quote by Brzezinski. who was David Rockefeller's protege. If you remember, Kissinger was Nelson Rockefeller's protege, and that Brzezinski followed Kissinger as national security advisor, again overseeing CIA, FBI, and foreign policy. But he wrote a book called The Technotronic Era, Brzezinski did, in which he's quoted, "Power will gravitate into the hands of those who control information." Of course, information, electromagnetic frequencies are information-based. Language is based on sound frequencies. The Creator creates the spoken word. What is word but sound? What is sound but electromagnetic frequencies? What's that? Simply mathematics and physics. It's information. It's data. Data processing. That's how genetics works. This will encourage tendencies through the next several decades towards a technotronic era, a dictatorship, leaving less room for political procedures as we know them. Finally, looking ahead to the end of the century, the possibility of biochemical mind control and genetic tinkering with man, including beings which will function like men and reason like them as well, but they're not. They're humanoids. Could give rise, he says, to some difficult questions. You bet. Like, how are we going to survive? I'm about to share with you the expose of the cryptocracy and oligarchy that was behind not simply the human genome heist, but also the sickening anthrax mailings scam. I was the first researcher in the United States to contact the FBI concerning the anthrax mailings. Here was my orientation. Here's how I got involved. I've been studying anthrax for about 3 years. I've been collecting clips. You know, when CIA does their investigations, basically they gather